You're in the right place. Are you ready for 5 powerful secrets that help to teach children responsibility? That's what we're doing today. I am a clinical psychologist.
And I'm a speech-language pathologist.
We've spent our whole careers working with kids, and we've learned these powerful secrets. The last 2 that we share with you will actually increase your energy.
The first secret to teaching your child responsibility might seem a little strange, but it is that smiling is more powerful than yelling.
Yes, it is. In fact, yelling is what I call a parent trap. When we yell at our kids, they respond immediately.
Right.
But the problem with yelling is that technically, from a behavioral psychology standpoint, it's a reinforcer.
Yes.
Not a punishment.
And it also is sending the message, I'm out of control.
Right.
Which doesn't help. So
Right.
we go back to smiling. When you smile, that sometimes the kids are thinking, wait, Mom's smiling. What's going on? It gets them thinking. And thinking is what we want.
Think, not fight. That's one of the things that we teach in our parent trainings.
Right.
You want them to think, not fight. You can encourage them to think by simply smiling. What does it tell you if I say, hey, either way's okay with me, and I smile? Or if I say, any questions?
Suddenly
And
you have to go, oh.
Suddenly you're like, should I have questions? What does Dad know that I don't?
It causes some curiosity.
And that's what we want.
Right.
We want them to think, not fight. Smiling is more powerful than yelling.
Because that's how they're going to get to responsibility, is by thinking.
Right, exactly. And I said earlier that yelling is actually a reinforcer.
Yeah.
In behavioral psychology, what that means is it's more likely to increase a behavior than it is to decrease a behavior. And when we yell at our kids, we get fooled into thinking that that's working because we get their attention. They respond right now. But the problem is, for kids, bad breath is better than no breath at all. And if they're doing it for attention and you're yelling at them, you just reinforce the behavior that you yelled at them for.
Right.
That's not what we want to do. Keep that in mind. Smiling is more powerful than yelling. Here's the next secret. And this is for you as parents, but it's also for your kids. You want to share this with them.
We're trying to give this secret to them in a way.
All they really need to know is that every choice has a consequence. Wait, is that true?
It's true. And the better my choice, the better my
consequences. When I say consequences, remember, I'm coming from a behavioral psychology standpoint. And a consequence, you look at the Latin roots of that word, it means with some sequence of events. Okay, consequence. There's a consequence. It's something that comes with or alongside of or after something else. And it can be positive or it can be negative. It can be pleasant. It can be painful. They're all consequences. What is the consequence of getting to bed on time? You feel rested. You get better sleep. What is the consequence of staying up all night? Well, you feel tired and worn out and wiped out. Okay, those are both consequences. So every choice has a consequence. The better my choices, the better my consequences. Now, why is this a secret to teaching kids responsibility?
You know, as we try to bring this to their understanding, because really that's what we're doing as parents. We're kind of illuminating truths for them, right? So if we help them see that consequences are tied to your choices, then as they mature, they're going to be able to go, I'm going to make some better choices. And so they're learning responsibility, right? If they're constantly thinking that they can avoid consequences, or of their choices, avoid those consequences, they're shirking responsibility as soon as they do that. So we're trying to teach them responsibility.
This also gives you a fun little tool that you get to use for your own parental sanity. All right? I don't want you to feel like your hands are tied. Here's what I mean. Sometimes kids will come back with, hey, you didn't tell me that was going to happen. Right? When you implement a consequence.
Oh, you bet.
And my favorite response to that, you're on to me.
Smile.
I smile, right? Because I'm not going to tell you every consequence that could possibly happen. I want you to think it through. And so you don't have to feel like, well, I have to put my kids on notice. Well, if you don't do this, then that's going to happen. Or if you do that, then this is going to happen. All they need to know, and all you need to do as a parent, is establish this. Every choice has a consequence. The better your choices, the better your consequences. And then throw in, any questions? With a smile, okay? Because then they're going to think. And that frees you up. You don't have to tell them everything that's going to happen. In fact, that puts you in a more powerful position as a parent. While we're simplifying things, let's get to the next secret, which is that the kids only need to do 2 things. That's it. In fact, if I get a kid in my office, I pull them aside. Okay? The parents are there in the room, and I say, come here, I got to tell you something. There's only 2 things you need to know. I'm going to tell your parents about 4 or 5 things they need to know. But all you need to know is 2 things. Now, can you remember this? And then I coach them through this. All you have to do is listen and think. That's it. That's all you have to do. You don't have to remember anything else. Just listen and think. Because if you listen, you're going to hear important information. And then if you think about that information, you'll be able to make good decisions.
Right.
Every choice has a consequence. The better my choices, the better my consequences. If you listen and think, you're good. That's pretty cool. And this is more for the parents, okay, this next part. And we already touched on this just briefly. To think, not fight.
Right. Well, and to recognize that for a parent, and this really was an eye-opener when I finally got this, is that every interaction I have with my child, I am inviting them to either think or fight.
Good point.
And so just be aware that that's how you're showing up. Are you inviting your child to think? That's going to help foster their sense of responsibility and growth of that.
One of the main reasons, by the way, Vicki, that we are encouraging all parents to find ways to get their children to listen without yelling. Mm-hmm. When you yell at your child, what are you inviting them to do?
Fight.
That's a fight, see? And it triggers a natural biological response that originates in the limbic system of the brain. You have one too. It's called the fight or flight response. And if you feel threatened, trigger chemicals going through your bloodstream, and all your brain is telling you to do is fight. So that's why yelling is so problematic. Yeah. Smiling is more powerful than yelling.
Mm-hmm. Because it's inviting thinking.
It invites thinking
fighting.
Instead of fighting.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
So parents are probably best served if they spend their time and energy on consequences versus trying to make sure their child cooperates.
I still remember Bill, who is a brilliant engineer, and he also had a lot of technical skills. Like welding was one of his skills. And he had 5 kids, okay, ranging from age 13 down to 3 or something like that. Mom was a working mom, and he was taking care of a lot of the home front at the time. And I remember as I was talking to Bill about this, he says, I get so frustrated with my kids, and we end up spending hours in conflict and fighting. What if we could take just half of the time we spend arguing or in conflict with our kids, think, not fight, okay? Thinking about consequences that we can implement without their cooperation.
Yeah, that's the thing, is we need to put our energy into those consequences that don't require the child's cooperation. We have full control of that.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So Bill figured it out. Uh-huh. They were arguing about screen time and the use of the television, the computer, and everything else. He's a welder.
So here
Did
comes
I mention
the technology.
That? And so he started thinking, and he spent just a little bit of time, not even a lot. He spent a little time thinking and planning out how he could make a steel locking box that has a power strip inside of it. And long story short, he developed a consequence that he didn't need the kids' cooperation for. He could turn it off, lock it, turn it on, lock it, whatever he wanted to do. Thinking. Who'd have known? You can come up with some brilliant things. Please spend at least half of the time that you have spent arguing with your kids on thinking. And you'll come up with some brilliant things. If you're struggling with that, use your resources. Google it. YouTube
consequences,
it.
Right.
We got some here. Find Find some ways to move yourself forward with thinking, not fighting. That's powerful. We've got more to cover, but while you're thinking about it, you've got friends, other parents who could really use this. Will you take a moment to share this video with them and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already? Can you see how that last one is going to increase your energy? We're going to give at least half of it back to you. And what if you just give up fighting with your kids altogether? Well, then you can use all of that time thinking and just being the brilliant person that you are. But there's more to it. Here's another thing that will absolutely bring the energy back to you as a parent. Let me set this up.
Okay.
Who should be worrying about what your kids are doing? And if I give you multiple choice, should that be A, your kids, or B, you? Which one would you prefer?
We definitely want to shift that responsibility over to our children for their choices and the consequences that go with the choices.
Absolutely. And this means that the skill we get to develop is to detach from the outcomes.
Now, how does this teach responsibility to our child?
Whoever is the most worried about the outcomes is the one who's going to take responsibility for it.
Okay.
And if you've noticed that you tend to be the one taking responsibility for the outcomes all the time, like for example, if you're constantly reminding your child to do their chores or their schoolwork or whatever. Reminding, we call it reminding, they
call it nagging. Right.
Yeah, you're riding me, you're nagging me. What does that indicate about who's the most concerned about the outcomes? Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's you. And in child and adolescent psychology, they're constantly going through this little evaluation in their mind. Should I worry about this? Or should I let somebody else worry about this? Oh, that wins hands down because that requires less of my energy.
Right.
We're going to play the same game. Should I worry about this as a parent? Should I let my child worry about this?
And I think sometimes we're so worried we want to save them from their consequences that we kind of jump in and do things. But remember, we're trying to teach them responsibility. And so one of the greatest things that we can do is honor their choice.
I have parents all the time who tell me, but if I let them be responsible for it, it won't happen. And
there is a consequence tied to that. And we're going to honor their choice and let them have that consequence.
Let the consequences and empathy do the teaching. Mm-hmm. That's the powerful thing. Where you're detached from the outcome. Hey, either way.
I honor your choice.
So imagine that position. Here you are. You can do the thing I asked you to do or not. Either way, it's really okay with me. And then you smile because that triggers their thinking. And then they're like, wait a minute, hold on. What consequences are going to happen as a result of my choosing this or that? And if you're detached from it as a parent, they get to be attached to it
and they
themselves.
Take ownership, which is responsibility.
Right. That's how we're going to teach it. Hopefully you found that helpful. There's more helpful resources available for you. In fact, we've got a gift. We've got a free parenting web class. Click on this next video, which will explain all about that and the things that you're going to get from that course.